Good evening. Welcome to Africa Express Talk Show. Today, we are going back to Sierra Leone. Sierra Leone is soon to have, they're in the preparation to run their primary election. Today on the show with us is an attorney and former ambassador to United States, John Leigh. John Leigh has declared his candidacy for president of Sierra Leone, and he is here on the show to discuss with us his plans for Sierra Leone. Welcome to Africa Express, Ambassador Leigh.
Madam Blessing, thank you very much for inviting me in your very prestigious show. I'm delighted to be here.
Mr. Ambassador, you have declared your candidacy for president of Sierra Leone. Please tell our viewers why you should be the next president of Sierra Leone.
Actually, Blessing, I'm right now on my way to Freetown to declare my candidacy in my hometown and around the country. I want to be president of Sierra Leone because I have great plans for the country. Sierra Leone is a place of extremely unnecessary hardship, and we need to change our situation and make life better for the people of Sierra Leone. I believe I have the qualifications, I have the experience, I have the inclination, and I'm determined to do whatever I can to improve conditions in Sierra Leone. Sierra Leone doesn't have to be in the condition in which we find ourselves today. For almost 50 years since independence, politicians have been coming and ripping off the land, and today we have nothing to show for all the great things God gave us. I want to change that situation and put our people in a position where they can develop and prosper like good nations on earth.
Sierra Leone is divided into several tribes. What tribe actually are you from?
Well, actually, Blessing, I am a complete Sierra Leonean. My bloodlines expand to all 4 parts of Sierra Leone. I was born in the southern province in Bo Town, southern province of Sierra Leone. My mother hails from Komendi Station, Nongowa Chiefdom, Kenema District, Eastern Sierra Leone. My father was from Freetown, and his own parents were partly from Freetown and partly from the north, Kafubulom Chiefdom, near where Lunge Airport it is. So what you are seeing today is you are seeing a Sierra Leonean, a complete Sierra Leonean who has the entire nation at heart. He wants to develop Sierra Leone as one unity, one total nation, not split into tribes or ethnic groups, but one people, one country.
Mr. Ambassador, you have been in politics for a long time. You were the former Sierra Leone ambassador to United States, and you've worked on various projects around Africa. Looking at employment, right now Sierra Leone employment is very low. If you are elected the president of Sierra Leone, what are your plans, or how do you plan to fix this problem?
Actually, Madam Blessing, I've been in politics for only about 10 or 15 years. I am not a professional politician. Before I went into politics, I published books in Nigeria. I worked for American corporations in the United States, and I traded with England, China, and other countries in the world. I went to politics after I became a lawyer and after I saw that conditions were keeping on deteriorating in Sierra Leone. And I supported my party that I've been part of since I was a young man, since I was in secondary school, since I was in college, and that party had been out of power for over 30 years. Through hard work, through determination and support, we got President Kaba elected in 1996. So I put myself as a politician, say, around 1994, 1995. So it's relatively new. There are people there ahead of me who've been politicians all their lives. I'm not. I'm not a professional politician. Now,
but you're a diplomat.
Yes, I had a diplomatic position in Washington, D.C. It was the middle of the war, and I did whatever I can to garner support for our country to bring in peace and development. And I'm pleased to say we have peace in Sierra Leone through the Sierra Leone People's Party. You asked me a question about the unemployment situation in Sierra Leone. It is a terrible, terrible situation. The unemployment in Sierra Leone is probably about 70 to 80%. The young people have they have no future right now. There is very little hope, if any. The reason is very simple. My country does not have a very good international reputation. My country doesn't have any good reputation with foreign investors, and it has no good reputation with development agencies around the world. Why? Because our governments have handled foreign corporations in a very terrible manner. If you go to Nigeria, Ghana, and Gambia, you'll find all those corporations that the English left behind. PZs, UAC, CFAO, SUA, whatever it is, are still functioning in those countries. In Sierra Leone, they all folded and went away 20 years ago under the governments of Shaka Stevens and General Momo.
So, sorry, sir. What do you think is the cause? Is it that the government is not a democratic government at that time? Is that the cause why the foreign investment shifted away from Sierra Leone?
The government was a one-party state. It was a one-party dictatorship, and it was extremely, how would I put it in a very polite way? It was honest. They defrauded the foreign corporations. They refused to give them foreign exchange. They took their local currencies, refused to release foreign exchange, and those companies could no longer trade. So they quietly folded and departed our shores. All those companies, about 20 or 30 of them, are flourishing today in Nigeria, in Ghana, and in Gambia. Some are in Guinea, but no one is in Sierra Leone. I want to make my peace. I want to make Sierra Leone make its peace with foreign investors. We have to go back and look and see what went wrong, correct them. And I believe those foreign investors will talk to me because I have a clean record. They are unlikely to make peace with the guys who drove them away. SLPP was the party under which they flourished. When once a one-party state was put into Sierra Leone, they began taking advantage of the situation until everybody departed our shores. The unemployment that succeeded the departure is still with us today. So unless we improve our reputation with the foreign investment community, unless we improve our dealings with the development agencies, I see no future for employment in Sierra Leone. I, John Leigh, will work with those companies, will work with other companies, will work with development agencies to make sure that Sierra Leone should be where it ought to be today.
That's interesting, sir. Education issue. Sierra Leone has 20% of training girls and early girls marriage. How would your administration address this problem?
You know, Madam Blessing, Sierra Leone used to be the #1 state in the entire black African continent for education. It was from Sierra Leone that the British hired people to open up Nigeria, Ghana, and all the countries down the coast. But today, the condition of Sierra Leone education is in a terrible state. As for the young women in Sierra Leone, we have to find something for them to do. When they have nothing to do, they begin to do all the things they're doing today, getting married early, getting children out of wedlock, and engaging in antisocial behavior. We have to get those ladies properly educated, given skills they can use to earn their living, and provide opportunities for them to develop. If you train them but there are no jobs, then the training is not profitable. Today, a lot of teachers are females. Today, a lot of nurses are women. But the government doesn't pay them right away. They work as nurses for 2-3 years before they get their first paycheck. They work for teachers for 2-3 years before they get their first paycheck. This is not the way a modern society ought to be governed. We have to change that situation. We have to make sure that our women are very important. They have talents. We need to open sport facilities for them. We need to make sure that there are opportunities for every one of them to develop and prosper.
We will take a short break and we'll come back to this topic. Welcome back to Africa Express. We are here today with Ambassador John Leigh, who has declared his candidacy for president of Sierra Leone. Mr. Leigh, in the last several years, we've seen increase in rebel activities within Africa, geared towards to destabilize governments. In fact, Sierra Leone experienced this also. How can we promote good governance, and promote rule of law to deter such activities in Africa?
Madam Blessing Rogers, the starting point for good governance is to elect good people. If you elect bad people, no matter how strict the rules are or how complicated the rules are, the fellows that are rascals will find some ways to sabotage progress. So, rule number one, you elect people with impeccable reputations, and then you set up a system to have checks and balances so they don't get out of control. You got to build an economy so people have jobs, and the jobs should be well paying. You cannot employ people and pay them wages which cannot support them for the entire until the next paycheck. Tiny wages, large unemployment, the typical African method of, quote, monkey hook, babu eat, are some of the things that provoke rebellion in many African countries. We in Sierra Leone need to elect first-class people to produce a first-class country. This has not been the case in the prior years. We've elected people on sentiments. We've elected people on personal friendships. That must stop. SLPP is a very important political party, and they should look among their leaders who are the most loyal, who are the most productive, who have helped Sierra Leone more than the rest, who is there for the party in good times and in bad times. Some people come into the party, they try to get something. When they don't get it, they go to another party. When they lose there, they come back to us. Those people should be put on the side, should be educated, and show this type of political harloting is not the way forward. So I am saying that the starting point for good governance is electing good people and then setting checks and balances to make sure that those people you elect stay in control and do what would benefit the people. If you don't establish checks and balances, some might get out of hand. And two, be fair to the population. In most African countries, the distribution of income is highly skewed. In Sierra Leone, for example, maybe 10% of the people, maybe 15% of the people control 90% of the wealth. It's wrong. The vast majority of mankind don't have money in their pockets, they don't have food to eat, they don't have decent housing, they struggle for transportation and so forth. You need to change that situation. If we don't, we're going to have problems. We have to maintain a professional police force. I was in Freetown on the 13th, on the 12th, 13th, 14th, 15th, 16th of March last year, when rioters entered my party's office, desecrated it, assaulted people, confiscated the radio station, and those guys went free. The police arrested the victims rather than the perpetrators. As long as you don't have an objective professional police force, you're not going to have peace. As long as you don't have a strong professional police force, foreign investors will stay away. When they stay away, employment will not improve, unemployment will increase, the government will not have enough revenues to support public services, and so on. We need military forces that will stay in the barracks and not make coups. The military is supposed to defend the territorial integrity of the nation and not to confiscate civilian offices. When you have some of those things in place, when you have good people to govern, when you are fair to the population, you don't lie to them, there will be peace in the land. You have to provide public services for people to live as human beings and not hand to mouth from day to day. I think basically those are the outline parameters for getting a nation stable, attracting investments, getting development funds to develop the country further.
Ambassador Leigh, you mentioned something about rioting. Some SLPP aspirants are campaigning on the claim that they gave power to Tijan Kaba, and that SLPP gave power to Tijan Kaba and SLPP in 1996. Is such a claim true?
Oh, Madam Blessing, I've heard that claim by one particular candidate who was in the military and they had staged a coup. I'm not going to call names because I don't think it's fair. That particular candidate is going around saying he gave power to Tijan Kaba, so he wants the power back. It's not true at all. The people that gave power to Tijan Kaba are the voters of Sierra Leone. What happened was this. A military junta was in place. They were killing people and causing a lot of destruction. And the international community was upset. So they sent a minister from England to tell those boys to say, stop what you're doing and resume the plan to have multi-party elections in Sierra Leone. They were stalling. When one of them, the leader, agreed to go forward, he was overthrown, and this guy who is claiming I gave power to Tijan Kaba came in and tried to stall multi-party elections. They formed what they call Peace Before Election Movement. It was just a fake peace movement to prolong their stay in power. Eventually, the British got fed up and told them if they don't hand over power, they will come and catch them and throw them in jail for treason. So they allowed elections to go on. I was one of those who stood behind the Sierra Leone People's Party in 1995 and 1996 to help the party campaign for the first time in 30 years and to win that election. The agreement was whoever won that election would take power from the military. If anybody else has won the election, the military would have been forced to surrender power to them. In fact, what the military junta did was they formed their own political party called the National Unity Party the National Unity Party. That's the party they wanted to give power to. But we in SLPP campaigned successfully and won. And so the chairman of the interim National Executive Council, Dr. James Jonah, declared Tijan Kaba as the winner of the 1996 election. So he gave power, he forced the military to surrender power to the winner of that election. The military was reluctant. They wanted to give it to NUP, but according to the agreement then, they could not have done it. To say he gave power to Tijan Kaba is lies. It's not true. It was the people who elected Tijan Kaba, who was behind Tijan Kaba, who stood with him in that podium in Kenema Coronation Field in December 15, 1995, were the ones who gave Tijan Kaba the power he won.
Please stay tuned. We will continue this discussion when we get back. Welcome back to Africa Express. We are still here with Ambassador Leigh. Ambassador Leigh, crime and corruption has infested some of the African countries due to imbalance of power, of which Sierra Leone is one of them. Please outline your plans to combat corruption in Sierra Leone.
Thank you for that question, Madam Blessing Rogers. I agree with you. Crime is getting endemic in Sierra Leone, and corruption is one of the oldest professions in that country. And I say so seriously. Right now, we have an anti-corruption commission, but there's no commissioner. The commissioner resigned because rumors have it that those in authority were putting too much pressure on him to avoid catching the real crooks. They wanted him to go after small fries and leave the big guys untouched. That is not the way to address one of the biggest problems causing hardship in that country. As long as corruption is not addressed, we're not going to get development aid. As long as we don't have development aid, we're not going to get nationwide electricity. We're not going to get nationwide water supply. We're not going to get employment. We're not going to get a developing society. So we have to address the problem of corruption. Corruption has to be endemic in Sierra Leone. There are too many unemployed people. Prices are too high. Wages are too small. Things are just expensive all over the place. Opportunities are not there. The only people enjoying are a small clique. Like I said earlier, 10% of the population, maybe 15%, control 85 to 90% of the wealth of the land. As long as you have that situation, those outside, those people in that 80% group will find ways and means to get things illegally. And of that 10 and 15%, most of the wealth is through corrupt means.
But Ambassador, I understand what you're saying. However, is that an excuse for someone to engage in corruption because you're not being paid enough or engage in bribery taken? Again, Africa is already suffering from that epidemic. So how about morality?
You know, Madam Blessing, morality is fine as long as you afford it. If you are starving, you are struggling to survival, you got to do what it takes to survive. So I can see why some people are desperate and do things that they should not do. But you have to address human needs. You have to provide for people before you can discipline them. As long as they're having hardship, they are suffering, what are you going to do? It won't be effective. You have to go with those big fellows who control everything and not allow anything to filter down to the common man and woman. Therefore, you got to elect good people who will give the country a good international reputation so that legitimate businesses will be attracted to the country, invest, provide jobs, provide technology, and begin to build the country. If the country is governed properly, development aid will come in to do all the basic infrastructures that are lacking in society today. And unless you put those basics in place, how are people going to feed themselves? It's very tough. They cannot sit down and starve to death. They cannot live under the rain. They got to have a roof over their head. They got to move from point A to point B. They're going to wear clothes. So if you don't give them, they will find some means to survive. And that is one of the problems causing Sierra Leone. We, the people with education in Sierra Leone, must set up systems in place to protect the poor people of Sierra Leone from the ravages of a few greedy politicians. It's not easy, but it can be done. Other countries have been able to manage corruption. Corruption is not something you can abolish. It's not, you can't abolish it. It's too difficult to abolish. But you can control it and make it more manageable, make life more manageable for ordinary people. But as long as everything is taken out by big men and squandered and not infused to the people, you're going to have instability and unhappiness in the land. That's the way I see it.
Ambassador Leigh, Sierra Leone has natural resources. How would your administration utilize these resources to improve Sierra Leone if you are elected?
Yeah. That is one of our biggest problems in Sierra Leone. Sierra Leone is one of the most generously endowed nations in the whole world. In front of Sierra Leone, the entire coastline is the richest East Atlantic fisheries. There are gold, diamonds, bauxite, platinum, rutile, titanium, iron ore, all over Sierra Leone. There is hardwood timber. There are rivers from one end of the country to another end of the country. But again, a small group of people in authority, since the passing of Sir Mitin Magai, have controlled those resources. If you go to Connaught today, which is where you had most alluvial diamonds. Alluvial diamonds are diamonds you can dig within 20 feet, you find them. Today, those diamonds are gone. Connaught is devastated, and there is nothing good to show for all those diamonds that they mined there in the last 50 years.
Let me ask you, where did those diamonds go? If you said they are gone.
Most were smuggled out. In the last 25 years, the rebels came in and force mined. And this fellow who was in Liberia, Charles Taylor.
Yes.
I was told when I was the ambassador in Washington, D.C. by the State Department that in 1999 alone, Charles Taylor exported 6 million carats of diamond in 1 year.
That would say why he was in Sierra Leone to start.
So the rebels mined diamonds and sold them to buy weapons to kill our people. But before the rebels came in, others were doing it. And because they did it, the state became very weak for rebels to come in and do what they did. Therefore, we have to look at those natural resources and manage them properly. When I was in Washington, D.C., and was really working with the American government to come and develop Sierra Leone and Liberia in tandem. I don't want one country to go up and the one down. I wanted both countries to work in tandem, to develop in tandem. The American government told me, he said, Mr. Ambassador, tell your government, the minute they know how to manage their natural resources, will come in and help you. That is why I wrote an oil memorandum to President Kabah to say, this agreement that I saw is going to upset the American and the Canadian government. I was High Commissioner also in Canada. It's going to upset the Nigerian, the American and the Canadian government, and it will make it difficult. But the message was not well received, so that is that. But if we, as Sierra Leoneans, instead of giving our minerals away for bribery, instead of not processing our mineral, we just allow them to dig it raw and ship it, we are not going to get the benefit that we need to fix that country. There are enough goodies on the ground to take care of every soul in Sierra Leone, but we have to find leaders who are conscientious enough and determined to make sure the people get the maximum benefit of that instead of going to their own pockets. So harnessing natural resources is a key in the future of Sierra Leone.
Thank you so much, Ambassador Leigh. Thank you for staying with us and watching Africa Express. You have been listening to former ambassador to United States, Ambassador John Leigh, and also former High Commissioner to Canada.
That's correct.
Discuss issues about Sierra Leone. Again, thank you so much for staying with us today.
Thank you.